Welcome back to Gospel Chats with Ryan and Marshall. So grateful that you're willing to join with us as we try to figure out the gospel of Jesus Christ and wrestle with questions.
So excited.
We got questions.
Well, we got questions.
We got questions. What do you want to wrestle with today, Marshall?
Well, we had a reader, watcher, listener.
Somebody participating in some way.
Someone's participating. One of our listeners reached out and sent a question our way, a very personal question, a very important question to her, and I think a very important question to many, many of our listeners. And if not important to some of our listeners in the stage of life, very important to them regarding their children, their grandchildren, whatever. I think it's super important and huge principles in here that I think are important for all of us. So I think we should just dive into her question. It's very well put forward. I'm just going to read it. It's long. She describes some things here, but I think it's worth reading. I sent it to you in advance.
Good. It's good, and there's a lot of nuance, but it's like you're saying, this hits at some very important questions.
Yeah. So I'm just going to use her words because I don't want to misinterpret what she's saying. The church has great resources and doctrine on the role of intimacy within marriage, but I know that myself and others wish there was more guidance on other physical expressions that feel intimate during dating, kissing, making out, cuddling, etc. I'm a 25-year-old single woman who has never been in a relationship, although I've gone out with many, many young men over the years. I know an astounding amount of amazing women like myself who also relate to this problem. I seem to stumble across every time, and it is this. Men need intimate expressions of physical attraction and affection in order to know if they want to give more emotional intimacy necessary to grow a connection, but women need emotional intimacy and loyal security in order to feel comfortable giving that physical affection. I've heard advice from church leaders, educators, that the level of physical intimacy should follow the level of emotional and mental intimacy, which should also follow the level of commitment that the relationship is in. I have done my best to follow this advice. However, it seems the men of the church don't operate this way. I'm a naturally affectionate person, and my only stipulations to being more physically affectionate in romantic terms, kissing, making out, cuddling, are that I feel emotionally connected enough so that kissing and such are expressions of an existing connection and not lust or shallow gratification to cover a different unmet need. And 2, we aren't seeking those same things from other people and want to work toward a committed relationship. I feel like I created these 2 guidelines with righteous intent, but I don't seem to be getting anywhere in my dating life. But I don't want to have to give more of my body and my affection to someone before I'm ready as something for them to weigh if they want to let me in and create a meaningful emotional connection. And I'm not comfortable pushing the lines of covenants I have made to be chaste for the chance at making a marriage covenant. I've had guys highly recommended to me from people I trust that have served missions and attend the temple and hold steady callings come and beg me to cross my physical boundaries, but in the same breath tell me that we aren't close enough for him to be emotionally available and he doesn't want to stop seeing other people. Help. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And it's good and it's powerful and it's a very real question of what type of intimacy is okay pre-marriage. Law of chastity is a thing and a very important thing, important enough that it gets its own covenant in the temple.
Yes,
that's huge.
Saying something.
That's saying not every commandment gets its own covenant in the temple.
Yeah,
that's big, and along with that, just some legitimate questions of culture, some of the things that this is the day after General Conference, honestly, some of the things that prophets and apostles talked about over the past week and of concerns that they're seeing of worldly culture seeping into the church in some ways, it appears from the wording of her question.
Yeah.
And so the question is, well, help. So the good news is I have you here, Ryan.
Dear listener, we've got all the perfect answers and we're going to fix all the men in the church for you.
Yes,
so there you go.
Amen. I wish we could fix everything and get all the perfect answers, but I think we need to start because this is rooted in law of chastity. Is that a fair beginning point? Right? There are some real
that's
things.
The big overarching principle.
And I think part of that is we start to look at this question of why Why does God care so much about sexual relations? Why is it there? I think as we do that, then we can start to use those exact same principles and guidelines that maybe deal with the very specific no sexual relations outside of marriage to start to see what does that look like in a dating situation? What does that look like pre-marriage? As we look at this, so what's okay, what's not? I don't know if we want to make a list, but I think if we get the principles and the doctrine behind the law of chastity, a lot of these things start to clear up a little bit. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, is it all right? We can't, for me, and I think you're the same generation I am, you can't talk law of chastity without talking Elder Holland. In my view, gave the best talk on the law of chastity when he was president of BYU, of Souls, Symbols, and Sacraments.
The best.
It's just
that I've ever come across.
It explains it so well, and then he cuts it down to a shorter version that he gave in General Conference in October of 1999.
Called pure, what is it?
I've got
personal
it right. Personal purity.
Yeah.
Purity. I've got it right here. This talk, I still remember where I was. I remember sitting on the third row of the chapel in Brownsville as a missionary, and he gave that talk and just being like, okay. And the funny thing is I'd heard of Soul, Symbols, and Sacraments before, but to hear him give it live in that way, it hits hard. And he covers and he begins to discuss the doctrine behind the law of chastity. So the very first doctrine he puts out there is the doctrine, the restored doctrine of the gospel, that body and spirit make the soul of man.
D&C 8815.
So important. So I'm going to throw this to you, Ryan. So I always find it interesting that he starts there. What's your thoughts right here of why does knowing the doctrine of the soul, why should that change our experience, our thoughts toward sexual relationships?
For me, it adds not only another layer, but another layer that is so deep to any conversation about physical intimacy, because I think 99% of the world, including 99% of members of the church, when they hear the word soul, our default is to think spirit.
Yeah.
And the scriptures actually use it that way a lot of the time. That it's a synonym. It can be interchangeable with the spirit and the soul. But in the restoration, we have this gem, and it really is a gem in D&C 8815, where it's like, no, in the deepest sense, your spirit and your body make up your soul. And then we get other verses to say that even spirits in paradise feel in a sense of bondage because of the absence of their body. Like there is an incompleteness in the most doctrinally pure sense of soul. It is your body and spirit. And so for me to come out of this world where everything sexual is so body oriented, body parts, objects. I mean, to just say it how it is, like this, whether it's in music or entertainment or in our language and in the way we treat each other, when it comes down to sexual things, it's a very animalistic, object-oriented, body part-specific bodies, physical bodies.
Yeah, I think the scriptural word that jumps out at me is carnal.
Carnal. It's a very carnal topic.
Yeah, and we have this idea of it's carnal, it's carnality, it's all flesh. And I think part of this, even from the historic Christian background of the idea of we'll put aside our bodies and move away from carnality and move into heaven, whereas the restored doctrine of your body is part of your eternal nature and being, it's your eternal soul. All of a sudden, the things we do with our bodies are no longer things that are like, well, one day the bodies will disappear and they won't be a bother anymore.
Yeah.
It's no, how you treat that is how you treat your eternal soul.
And how you're treating other souls,
and especially if we talk a lot about seeing others the way Christ sees them, treating others the way Christ treats them. That's a big question in everyday interactions that we have on the street. That becomes an even bigger question when we're dealing with sexual questions.
It did for me. So that's if you asked me like why start there. Just the very thought that as I have any interaction with intimacy, that I am not only affecting my eternal soul, but that will have implications for somebody else's soul is so much heavier and weightier and eternal and more serious and more sacred. And It's a whole different conversation the minute you bring souls into the conversation, not just bodies. For me,
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think there's no way when we start talking intimacy, when we start talking sexuality, there's no way that it isn't affecting. We know science wise, it affects your brain, it affects the hormones in your body, it affects everything about it.
yes.
And there is
And it
no
was meant
way-
to be.
and it's meant to be because it's a
meant to be.
beautiful, amazing, powerful thing.
So now instead of going too far, like you're saying, with like years of Christianity of let's get distance from this body. Let's thank goodness that when we go to heaven, we leave the body behind because that's what was getting in the way.
Yeah.
In the restoration, it's not what's getting in the way in and of itself. Now it can,
Yeah.
but now how do you learn to have mastery over body and spirit to create something celestial?
Right. And I love how you put that, to create something celestial. And you could look at that to create your celestial body, but also this gift of sexuality that God gives us is the gift of creation. It is a godly power. It's a divine power. Multiple prophets and apostles referred to it as the most sacred, the most divine, the most godlike power that God has given his children. Well, are we going to treat it in a way that's going to ennoble us and make us be more celestial, or we're going to limit us and pull us down and make us more carnal?
And yeah, I think we're getting a little bit better, but that's a conversation I still think we all, as church members, need to have more. Is it's not obey the law of chastity because bad.
Yeah.
And that's been our default teaching. It's
And
like, don't do that. It's so serious. It's so bad. It's so immoral. Where there's truth to all of that, but the reason that all that's true is because it's so holy,
Yes.
it's so sacred, it's so wonderful, it's so godly. Like, this is the most godly thing about me. Like, I cannot make a rock, I can't make a tree, I can't make a waterfall. I can be part of making a human life. Like, are you kidding me?
It's incredible.
Like, he shares the gift of creation, and the very thing that makes him Heavenly Father is that he can create life, like the biggest thing, and he shares that with us.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing.
And I think that's really key. You even go back to creation, that God rests after he puts Adam and Eve together, right? Like now
That was
I've
the
given
point
you
of
the
it all.
command to multiply and replenish the earth. Now I can rest because creation is in your hands.
Yeah.
And that's it's huge. And I love that we need to be moving away from the bad, because that does no good and that causes problems in the future.
Shame, and it's not helpful.
Yeah, and we have to go back to our worth and worthiness episode. This idea of we sort of came with the idea that being worthy, a synonym for that would be ready. This idea of, are you ready for the implications of sexual intimacy? And God's made it very clear, you're not ready for sexual intimacy until you are legally and lawfully married according to his law.
Pretty clear.
Very clear.
Pretty clear.
And so that's the starting point of this. I love how you put it. It's so holy, so sacred. We need to get ourselves ready, worthy, put in that position.
Okay, so one more verse there, and then just a thought as I'm thinking, the verse in Alma 38:12. I think it is, where Alma's giving counsel to Shiblon, which is interesting where it comes.
Right.
Because you think it would almost fit better in the next chapter.
In Corianton.
Corianton, who is struggling with sexual sin in his life. But it wasn't related to sin necessarily when he's talking to Shiblon in Alma 38. But he tells his son, see that ye bridle your passion, that ye might be filled with love. And there's so much in there that can be related to all areas of our life. I think Shiblon was a passionate missionary. Yeah. And so it seems to be in that context of like, passion is good. I think we need to make sure that we say that when it comes to sexual passion is good. Desire is good. We are meant to feel and be attracted. And I know lots of young adults that would almost say, I would just wish I didn't feel any amount of desire because it makes me feel dirty or unworthy. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. But bridle it. I grew up around horses early on, and it's interesting to think what a bridle does and does not do. A bridle does not kill passion.
No.
It really doesn't. It channels it. It focuses that horse. That horse has just as much power and strength and beauty, but that power and strength and beauty can become dangerous.
Yes.
It can become wild. It can do damage to the horse itself or to others. And so you get that bridle, and you get a horse who's comfortable with the bridle. Now it channels all of that power for good for both the horse and other people. Yeah. And so I just love that phrase of like, if we're going to have this conversation, this isn't about killing or avoiding or repressing passion, but bridling your passion is something that is really important.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you went there, and there's a C.S. Lewis quote that I love, which oddly enough, he uses reins as the metaphor that matches this. He says, "No natural feelings are high or low, holy or unholy in themselves. They are all holy when God's hand is on the rein. They all go bad when they set up on their own and make themselves into false gods."
That's good.
Right? And so just exactly what you're saying. And I think that's the key. There's nothing wrong with passion. In fact, it's a beautiful, wonderful, powerful thing is God's hand on the rein that's bridling it.
Because he wants the passion to lead to love. That's the interesting thing about the rest of that verse, that you might be filled with love.
Yes.
Passion left unreined can turn into things that are not lust.
Yes.
I think passion can turn into lust when it's unreined really quickly.
Absolutely. And it can that causes the problems, that causes the heartache when these passions, these feelings, this incredible gift was designed specifically not just to create life, but to create love.
Okay, so what does all this have to do with our friend's question?
Well, I know, dang it.
No, but I mean that,
No.
So we're starting up
Big.
at 10,000 feet of doctrinal basis behind chastity. So now here's our listener who's wondering,
What does this
okay,
mean?
I get that.
Well, I think my first spot is she pointed this out herself, whether she knows she did or not. I think she did, where one of her rules and standards for herself was she's not going to get engaged in any type of physical intimacy, cuddling, kissing, or things like that, if it is out of lust and a desire for gratification for other unmet needs. That right there, that is an Alma 38 moment. That is a Elder Holland, are you abusing the soul of someone else moment. That's
for your own self gratification.
Yeah. Or I love her insight of other unmet needs. Like, what are you missing in your life? What connections are missing that you feel like you need this, but not enough to actually connect? And I think right there we go to this question. So we have to go to her question. I think part of the question is, okay, what's up with men in the church? Which I have
a valid question.
Which I have the same question after reading her question after a number of conversations I've had with other people. Honestly, I'm trying to control myself right now.
Oh, what do you want to say to some of the young adult men in the church?
Oh, come now, Ryan. Don't talk. I want to tell them to grow up and stop being idiots. Like, what in the heck? I read that question. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're sitting here begging some young woman to make out with you and not do anything about it. That's childish. That's nonsense. I don't like you very much right now.
I wanted to get that out. I knew it was bottled up in there.
Well,
it's
because
you also need to point out there's outliers. There are good men out there.
They're great.
If you're listening to this,
are,
you're like,
no.
I swear that's not me.
No,
we know.
there are great
there's
ones.
good
There are
people.
great ones, and there are bad women. Okay, no, but no, there are great ones. But like that idea, and I've heard plenty. There's like, what the heck? Like that is, for me, there's nothing wrong with making out, but if you're just going to go use somebody, well, that's low. That's crass. That's vulgar. It's definitely not Alma 38:15.
It's spiritually immature.
It's very immature.
She has come at this from a very spiritually mature, when she said kind of her two guidelines, I thought that was a very great summary, a great mature way to approach relationships, to say, one, I don't want to get involved in those kind of physical expressions of intimacy if it's just shallow gratification or trying to fulfill other unmet needs. And two, that we're committed enough to each other that we're not running around doing this with everybody.
Exactly.
We are trying to develop a relationship that could go further.
Right, because clearly making out, kissing is not sex, but it is physical and it is sexual. There's no way you can distinguish that.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yes.
And there's no way out of that. And so to treat it as something that is of unimportance and doesn't have repercussions is foolishness.
And it's the world we live in.
It is.
And not saying that that's an excuse, but it is a reality that the very fact that she sent this question, hopefully allows anyone who's listening and us and those that we teach and those that we love to just wrestle with, we gotta call ourselves out on some stuff here. And just because, and this was mentioned in General Conference with lots of trends, we might not be following suit with trends of marriage and number of children as drastically as some of those things are happening, but we are following suit in the direction, in the trajectory. That in the church, we aren't on the cutting edge of some of these maybe drastic patterns of immorality and not understanding marriage and not understanding, but we are heading in the same direction. Yeah. And so that's what scares me kind of about this question that she shares, that it is an issue, that we have a bunch of people in the church, maybe males, in this scenario, and maybe females in a lot of those scenarios, that making out and physical intimacy before marriage is not
a big deal.
A big deal. Lots of making out, lots of hooking up, lots of and here's a young lady who doesn't want to get caught up in that culture.
And who is now worrying that her options for getting an eternal marriage are on the line because she's not willing to be part of hookup culture. Mormon hookup culture. And I use Mormon on purpose because Latter-day Saints would not do this.
That's good. And could we add, and in the name of, so she quotes, and I'm not sure where this quote comes from that she kind of puts out there, but it seems like at the heart of her question is, quote, "Men need intimate expressions of physical attraction and affection in order to know if they want to give more emotional intimacy necessary to grow a connection. But women need emotional intimacy and loyal security in order to feel comfortable giving that physical affection." So it sounds like we're at a standstill.
Yeah.
But I could almost hear that being used. Here's like that to me sounds like a very behavioral science statistic that in general, men need more physical intimacy to see if they want to go more all in emotionally, and women need more emotional security before they decide if they want to go in more physical. I get that that's probably a good generalization. I'm not a huge fan of generalizations, though. Sometimes
I'll admit, when I read that, my first thought was like, "Is that true?"
Yeah, I think it's easy to. And again, I'm not sure where she's pulling that from, but I can definitely see that being taught.
Yes.
I could see that being like just kind of nodding your head going, that is true.
Sense.
That makes sense. But as I looked at it, I just thought, but number one, if it is true, should it be true? And does it have to be true?
Well,
because that's where I wanted to push to say, I don't know if it has to be.
Well, and I don't think it has
or
to
should
be at all. Or should
I think those are two statements.
I'm a should be, and I think part of it is if you look at among other things of intimacy, of why does it work? How does it work? How does it godly? Is that real intimacy done in a godly way is one of that isn't about just satisfaction of self. It's about caring for the other. It's about looking for their needs. It's about knowing them. It's about giving. It's about giving, receiving. It's about all of those godly characteristics. And it's about vulnerability. And it's about openness. It's about all of those things, which makes it, what makes it intimate, why we use that word. And I feel like to use if a young man is using the excuse of like, well, I don't know if I want to keep going out with you until we make out and see just how good this is. That's well, immature and lazy. And no, part of this is you're going to have to, if you're going to want a real intimate relationship, it's time for you to actually do something difficult, young man, young woman. It's time for you to actually be like, okay, are you scared of going and being committed? Well, that's a problem. And well,
yeah, I'd hate to again that generalization. I could see that being misused to just be like, well, no, this is just how men are built, and so I need this to be met before I can go further emotionally.
And that's not how God made it.
And that's what we need to go back of whatever biologically is different about the sexes. And again, I think there are very distinct things that are different, just in the anatomy and the physiology of how and a lot of it's similar.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But to say, okay, our God who knows all and who created these bodies, he's given some guidelines, and I love you use the word godly. And this is interesting. I know this is like a higher elevated. It's interesting to have this conversation as a 46-year-old married man.
Right, I know.
To go back to 21-year-old me, even after the mission. And I don't know if those first few kisses in a couple scenarios were, I was thinking about her. Like, I'm just being honest. I don't know if that's not the natural default, I think, for me. I hope it becomes that way for some. But I think at least if we could have these conversations better, no one had those conversations with me.
No.
So I was left, like I think most people are, to just figure out in this world. And if you're just left to figure out in this world, you just make out.
Yeah.
Number one, because it's fun.
Yeah.
It feels good. And everybody else is doing it, and they're Latter-day Saints. So why would we question any of that?
Right.
And then you have a good sister like this who questions it. And it's like, oh, thank you for like
Exactly.
stopping us in our tracks and questioning and saying, are we going about this all wrong with like the whole make out hookup culture?
Yeah.
Because she's feeling like
She's missing
some
out.
pressure. Like, do I have to let go of some of my standards if I'm ever going to have an emotional connection that could lead to a marriage? And you're like, that is so sad that you would have to even ask that. And I don't think she's really, I think she knows that she's right. I hope she does.
Yeah.
You
You're right.
know, if you're not, like, I think you're 100% right. And don't you dare give ground on your 2 rules that you've set. I think they are inspired and godly and perfect.
Yes.
So what do we offer when she says help at this point?
Well, and I think what we offer is we need to be better. We're in a position where we can teach this type of thing to the young adults. Is I think part of it is we need to be better at teaching that there are godly ways. And I love how you even use the phrase like, my natural default was not this. Well, that's why we're called upon to put off the natural man and to become godly, to become holy. And this is a really difficult place. I mean, it's a really easy place to slip, and it because it's so real and it's so urgent, and the feelings can be so intense, so strong, and so you put this together of this question of even having it in the back of your mind of what's the purpose, what is the purpose, what am I going for right here? It can change things. And even with, I loved her rules, like, and part of that is if you're in a committed, you're moving, you're progressing relationship, that is a very different. Like, you don't have to sit down and have a full-on spiritual conversation every time you kiss when you're in a committed relationship. It's already been part of that.
It's natural.
Development.
It's in the flow of the development. But I think, and again, like, what are the details of what does that look like, and how many dates do you have to go on before you introduce a new physical element of intimacy? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to ever be this perfect chart of how that looks. But if we go in with the idea of souls,
Yes.
if we go in with the idea of here's a big trigger for me. Elder Holland, in a different talk he gave called Place No More for the Enemy of My Soul, he addresses pornography specifically, but all things sexual, in a bigger picture. And he says, let me just quote him instead of paraphrasing him because he's Elder Holland. If we stop chopping at the branches of this problem and strike more directly at the root of the tree, not surprisingly, we find lust lurking furtively there. Lust is an unsavory word, and it is certainly an unsavory topic for me to address, but there is good reason why in some traditions it is known as the most deadly of the 7 deadly sins. And then he goes on, and it's really good for my brain. And I think this is what we could teach better and talk about better. I have lots of young adults who will ask the kind of some version of this question. So where is the line? Yeah. Where is the physical intimacy line in a dating situation before marriage? And to me, I don't ever want to draw an actual physical action line.
Yeah.
I think that's not really as helpful as this line that Elder Holland seems to be drawing, which is the word lust is the line. Yeah. And he starts to say that lust is about self-indulgence. It's about hiding darkness. It's self-gratification. It's selfish. Like if that to me is the major connection. And so for me to start to ask myself as a man in that relationship of dating, is this selfish? Is this more about gratifying my selfish physical appetites right now than it is about thinking about someone else's soul and creating a holy relationship? Like that right there, I think should answer a whole bunch of questions about what is physically appropriate and not appropriate. Is it lustful?
Well, and you say that, and I can't help but go to Elder Holland in his personal purity talk, and he talks about this idea of oneness. And I know you can argue that the full oneness of sexual intimacy isn't present in what we're talking about right now, but there is a oneness of making out. There is a oneness to these physical, intimate things that
you're
are
starting
pre-sex.
to dabble with oneness.
You are dabbling with oneness, and
without authority or holiness or covenants.
Yeah, and he says, Such a total union, such an unyielding commitment between a man and a woman can only come with the proximity and permanence afforded in a marriage covenant. And we take that step back, and we have this same idea with the solemn promises, the pledge of all they possess, their very hearts, minds, and all their days and all their dreams. I want to make it clear. I'm quoting Elder Holland, but you don't need to make solemn promises as you begin to date someone. Like, this is the discovery page, but this idea of when we're drawing lines or what, as you say this, can you see the moral schizophrenia that comes from pretending you are one, pretending you have made solemn promises before God, sharing the physical symbols and the physical intimacy of your counterfeit union, but then fleeing, retreating, severing all such other aspects of what was meant to be a total obligation? Now, hopefully Elder Holland doesn't come and haunt me, but I think we take that lesser level of physical affection, but that, as you called it, dabbling with being one. If you're playing that game and not having any of the connection of we are in a relationship, not having a connection of we are moving in a direction that is moving towards possible covenants that we're making,
safe way of moving forward.
You're playing a moral schizophrenic game. You are using someone else's soul for your own personal gratification because you're too lazy to grow up. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
How do you really feel about it?
I sound like a 47-year-old prude, but the simple answer is maybe I'm 47 and a prude, but maybe it's because I've seen too many people's lives be destroyed by playing this game.
Yeah. It's a lot there because, yeah, I'm just thinking about how real those appetites, those desires, those passions are. And again, this is what I love about the gospel. It gives us a different framework to start from, and it's still not easy. And again, we can still be passionate. Like, I just think back to dating my wife, and it was fun and it was exciting. And the first time you hold hands, and then the first time you're watching a movie and you slide the arm around, and you're like, oh, and this is going well. They're like reciprocating, and the first time you kiss. Right. And again, what does that look like in an appropriate way is to just continue to keep the end goal in mind of what's really happening here. Like, go on dates for fun. But if you're going to introduce physical intimacy, that physical intimacy will always be attached to other types of intimacy.
Always.
Spiritual and emotional intimacy is happening there. And so just go in fully aware of, are you ready for that? Yeah. And do you want that? And are you thinking of someone else, not just yourself in that situation? Because, and I'll say it to my students this way, and I still believe this. And again, I wish someone would have said this to me clearer. I learned this through experience, but I wish I would have been planted in my brain and in my soul before. There is a lustful way to kiss somebody, and there's a beautiful way to kiss somebody, and they are not the same. No, they're really not. Like, you don't have to be, like you're saying, some prude. You don't have to be a nun or a monk, right, in a dating situation, and then, nothing's in play before marriage. Like, that's not what we're saying here.
Kiss, hold hands, figure things out.
Yes, and at a certain point in the relationship, like, I think there are some of those physical, like kissing, cuddling, being together, those embraces. But there is a beautiful way to do that. There is a kind way. Like, just think of those words. Like I don't know. And again, I'm just being flat honest. If I were to go back, even in my serious dating relationships, I don't know if that's the adjective that would have been used to describe. I wish I could go back to that. I wish whoever I was dating and in a relationship with could have used that phrase about me, that when Ryan kissed me or when we were kissing, whatever, it was kind, it was beautiful. Like, I think that's an appropriate goal for a disciple of Christ that I don't think we talk about.
Yeah. And I think I would even add love right there. There is an element
definitely at a point of that. It should be love.
Like, especially if we're getting certain, where is it leading, or is it leading that way?
Yes.
And that kindness is so huge as we look at this. There's just so much power, I believe in. I like how you say, if we just say, are you actually trying to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? That's the new for the strength of youth. Are you actually trying to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? And that includes how you treat other people in every aspect of your life.
Including maybe and especially in some of these most important aspects of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Are you putting somebody else in an awkward position? Are you making them question whether or not they've crossed lines that they've put for themselves? Are you begging them to cross lines that they've made for themselves?
And I'll say this to our listener who submitted this, and I hope anyone else listening, and I mean this from my soul. Like, one of the most appealing, spiritually attracting things when I was dating my wife is because she was like this person who submitted. Like, one of my favorite things about dating my wife was I knew her so well, and I knew the light that radiated from her so much that I would never have put her in a situation where she would have had to compromise what I know she felt and believed.
Yeah.
And I love that. She brought out the best in me because, again, just being honest, I don't know if I could have said that same thing about maybe some of the other people that I dated and got into serious relationships with. And I think that's why it was so empowering, drawing. Like, I don't know what the right term. It attracted me to Minnie so much, is that I respected her so much and where she stood in those areas that I would never have put in her situation where she would have been uncomfortable. Yeah. And I think that I hope that there's a bunch of men and women that fit that description, that's they want someone who wrote this question to us. They want someone who they can get in that scenario and know exactly where that person stands, and that they feel Christ-like, that brings out this Christ-like version of them. And thank you, because it makes me want to be even better, and that I would never want to put you there.
Yeah, and I love that because it is so powerful, and it's huge, and it was a big thing with me and Sue as well. Like the passion was there, the desire was there. I loved going and making out with Sue when we were dating, and now that was too much information. So it was.
I'm glad though. That's appropriate.
Right? It's important, and it was beautiful, and it was good, and it was always temple was the end goal, especially as we got deeper in the relationship and then got engaged. Like, there was nothing that was going to stop us from getting to the temple. And that was that beautiful, that kind, and that excitement, but also that yearning for the right time, for the readiness, for the worthiness, for those moments where it could come. And it was so big. Once again, we're not trying to be prudes or passionless. It's, are you actually letting God take the reins? Is he in charge of your relationships? Are you doing this? And you know, it's funny, this stupid story, but my grandfather sealed us, and he had a habit, a really bad habit apparently, because his second wife, at the time my grandma Sarah, would call him on it and said he needed to stop doing it. But his habit was he always made people kiss over the altar twice. After they got married, he would always be like, that wasn't a good enough kiss for your first marriage. So I knew that going in. So I was determined not to.
You're going to lay a good one on her on the first one so you didn't have to redo it.
Well, apparently it was good enough that it was just pure silence in the ceiling room. And then my grandpa was like, that was sufficient.
This is an awesome story. I've never heard this story from you.
So
this is sufficient. You're probably the first one that he ever gave. Like, man, you're
ready.
You gave her a married kiss over the altar. Good for you.
Now
I kind of wish I was there at your wedding, so I could have given you some grief. Like, Marshall, stop.
Don't worry, my siblings gave me plenty of grief. So, but that's that idea. Like, there was an excitement, there was readiness, it was time.
Yes,
and it was so powerful, and it's so beautiful. But it would never have been that way if they had treated all of the preliminaries like they were nonsense. You treat the preliminaries like they're nonsense, and then the final show is less than.
Yeah. We need to rethink some things, especially. I ache honestly for any teenager right now or young adult, because it was bad enough when you and I were there. I mean, the world was already sexualized, and sex was hijacked to be only physical and to be very selfish. And now that's blown into proportions now with the pornography industry and phones and the way that it gets talked about, and NICMO and Mormon culture and hooking up on apps. And they just are, you are fighting an uphill mountain.
Yes.
Right. Of just a tsunami of what Satan wants to do with these very sacred things. But with all that said, as a disciple of Jesus Christ who's listening to this podcast, right, as someone who comes from this church that has the Savior's name, we can completely still take this back. Yeah. We can fight against it and bridle our passions. We can do this appropriately. Any young man out there who has the privilege of dating this listener who sent us this, should be so grateful and so excited to enter into a relationship with someone who knows who she is and wants to introduce physical intimacy at the same level as emotional and spiritual intimacy. They should be progressive and at a pace that both are comfortable with, that is within God's laws. And then it doesn't have to be an either or. Yeah. Well, the guy wants more of this and the girl needs more of this. And no, again, I look back on how it worked out with my wife and I don't think it was one, it was both of us progressing on a track where we were both giving a little bit more physically because we were ready to give a little bit more emotionally. Yep. Because we saw it leading to something beautiful that could become one. Exactly. And so we didn't want to go too far and start to play like we were one already, but we wanted to take those next appropriate steps. And again, we were just in it together. We respected each other's boundaries. That I don't think should be unreal. I don't think that should be the exception to the rule. I think that's how it's supposed to be in every Latter-day Saint dating scenario.
Yes, I 100% agree. I so appreciated the question that was sent and the spirit in which it was sent. And there's so much power in doing things God's way, even if no one else wants to do it God's way.
Because there are those out there. You might have to sort through some of them. There are a lot.
There are so many out there.
And some of them, a lot of them are men. Like I hope this dear sister and others who are listening. I know
I don't hate men.
They're trying to figure this out. And again, I think we have given maybe a free pass to, the men are just built differently. Yeah, bull.
Yeah, no.
Men made same covenants that the women did. We are all trying to follow Jesus Christ. We can all do this.
And if I may, just in some of my harsh language that I've used today, the atonement of Jesus Christ is real. And as we've talked about, this is a growing experience for all of us as we're trying to figure things out. It's a growing experience after you're married to figure out. And there's times where this was beautiful, this was perfect, that was a little bit less than, right? There's moments where you're going to have to figure it out, and that's part of life. We're trying to figure it out. God knows that. But if you can keep these principles in mind as we figure it out, things get figured out more quickly, and with the Savior as your guide and your help. Start there, and these other things should start to take shape with someone else. Okay. Anything else you want to say? I think this was good. Thank you for helping me tackle this question. I hope that our listener got something from it. I hope so too. If not, she has my email address. So. No, and hopefully to others too, because again, just from my vantage point, not only did we hope this would be helpful to any young adults listening, but those of us who get a chance to teach, to share insight, right? I just think of my own kids. I think of, in my ward or here at the Institute. I hope we can have more of these conversations that are elevated about intimacy, including sexual intimacy, because again, it's still too taboo for whatever reason. And it doesn't, if we allow Satan to be the one who's dictating the conversation in 98% of the arena, no wonder we're playing catch up. No wonder we, are thinking wrong. Yeah. Because so we need to talk more about this and in sacred, beautiful ways. And I love that. If I could say something I don't think I've ever said before, and now I'm going to put it on the internet. But God loves sex, and He wants us to love it too, and He wants us to love it in a holy and higher and holier way. Amen to that. Amen. It's okay that you said that. I know. I knew it was okay, but I figured maybe the first time wasn't the best on a microphone while being recorded. But maybe it'll make our clip that we now put out there. We'll just leave that one-liner out there and see what kind of reaction we get. See what TikTok does with that one. There you go. Marshall, thanks. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for our dear listener who let us use this question as a springboard. And thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next chat.